Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to have another episode of Vina Talks and D Life. Today, I'm super happy to have Luke, one of my newest friends, but a very good friend indeed. And you will get to hear why I'm saying that in a second. So, Luke, can we actually get started by you introducing yourself? And perhaps if you'd like to extend a little bit into what has brought you into insurance, what was the process, and anything you'd like to sort of, use as a warm up for this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Vina. Thank you for having me on. So I'm Luke Bryan. I work within the insurance and financial industry. I am a learning and development practitioner, and my current position is a learning partner at my organisation, where I'll consult and help the organisation make and implement smart business decisions. So that's just a little bit on me.
Okay, that's great. Um, I suppose we're okay to sort of speak about who the organization is, especially in terms of what is very specific about Saga. And I believe I'd like you to sort of take a little bit of an opportunity to sort of explain in your own words, which really fascinated me at the time when I first sort of heard what's different about Saga. Um, because I think it actually connects very much into what neurodivergent people sort of are interested in, the wider values of any person, and really the different demographics in our industry and the people that we try to cater for.
So the organisation I work for is Saga, and they are very much an amazing organisation. As such, they people will know them for specifically catering for the over 50s. And what Saga are actually doing is battling all of the stigma that goes along with supporting the over 50s. And what really makes it really exciting for me, it's all about demonstrating that the over 50s are exceptional in the sense of experience and really changing that view on people that are over 50s. And essentially, they're not older, forgetting, not use. Actually, it's all the opposites of that. They're over their experience, the amounts of life experience they have, and Saga are just there to support that demographic, and just live the best they can with that experience as well. So that's kind of Saga and what they do.
That's beautiful. And as I mentioned last time, I didn't know that. I find absolutely fascinating that we have an industry player that basically caters for the specific demographic. As a society, we tend to almost, and okay, perhaps I'm focusing a little bit now on professional sort of stance here. We focus on the very productive sort of 20 years, about 30 to 50, as being seen, and the statistical sort of, I suppose, reporting that contributes to the fact that this tends to be quite productive years. Why? Because at these kind of times, we all want to get into the housing ladder. We want to sort of start families, and that obviously takes or needs money, and therefore needs a professional sort of life that's going to be injecting the necessary funds to enable these options, these decisions in life. That's all great. However, what we tend to actually therefore do, and this is where the stigma sort of point of yours comes in, is we tend to discount almost as if in order to raise one, we have to discount the other, which I don't think obviously is something necessary or indeed scientifically sort of proven at all. We discount the great experience, the intuition that meanwhile through this experience people have been developing. And at the same time, it's such a shame because the over 50s are very active, not just professionally, but also very active in terms of society. When you're looking at the people who are looking after the children, the grandparents, providing the child mining. So they're good enough for the child mining, but they're not good
But
enough in the
but
industry,
this,
right?
but this is it. This is one of the most interesting things about sort of as we move and everything changes in society, is we're seeing that people or that demographic of the over 50s are actually kind of more now busier than anyone of that age ever before, because they're saying that this is sort of the first sort of generation that are not they're not only looking after their parents, they're looking after their children, their grandchildren. They are some of the most sort of busiest, that are always looking after everyone else around them in that demographic. So that as well is that they're quite awesome people in that sense as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was at the ABI DNI conference a couple of weeks ago, and we had a panel actually speaking about intersectionality and aging population, of course, is part not just of the intersectionality sort of, part of the discussion, but indeed of a real life current day phenomenon. We have an aging population, and we have people over 50s who are very much keen to continue working way past the 70th year of their life. And you can tell already, I'm not speaking about the official sort of pension retirement sort of age. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking beyond that, because they simply want to continue giving. And one of the points that was raised was, include me, speak with me, and don't take things like set in stone, in the sense of course, you're not going to be technologically advanced. Of course, you won't be able to be digitally literate. Well, try me, include me, and then it's psychology after all, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's very much something that, as learning and development practitioner, is what you see. So perhaps I'd like to move into what's learning and development. Is learning the catalyst of development? Is development something that pushes you into learning?
So I think it's kind of, they come hand in hand, in the sense of, in regards to learning and development, is if you learn, you're going to develop. You can't develop without learning something new. And one of my favorite kind of sayings, if you will, that I've come across, is if you're not failing, you're not learning. So that's something to always look at, is if you've got something wrong, there's always something to learn or take away from that. And it's from, specifically, I suppose, if you learn, you will develop. So if there is an order to it, then potentially there's that, but you'll always have development through learning. So I think that's the way I see it.
Incredible. You know what I've learned this weekend? I was at a generative AI symposium in Oxford, and they said that apparently Google allows 20% of the working time of each and every employee to be spent on learning outside of what they do, for the immediate sort of job spec of the role they hold. And I found that absolutely mind-blowing and totally necessary. Being mind-blowing doesn't mean that's outside of my range of understanding or of appreciation, but at the same time, because it was the first time that I heard something like that.
Yeah.
I found it fascinating.
So learning for me, I think, is an absolute, just a power for anything. Just learning in itself is, it's an incredible tool to be used. Is you can learn something completely opposite to what you're doing and what right now, but the developmental needs from that learning activity. So for example, you could be an office worker going into lots of different meetings, but learning a new sport or activity, that's going to build confidence, connections, allows you to kind of think about your habits, things that you need to change, productivity, being persistent, and methods and process of reaching your goals. All of that in A, that's completely opposite, to B, they all parallel into each other from your development when you're learning. So I think people need to always be mindful that learning isn't necessarily books, or always has to pertain exactly towards the exact task that you're doing. It can be slightly different and be brought into those parallels, and those parallels to be explained. That's kind of how I see it. Is learning is just a useful tool in any complex.
Absolutely. And you said, so long as you identify the parallels, and as a person who's obviously affiliated with a very credible, long established and standing company in the city, within insurance, who's responsible for this, identifying the parallels? Obviously the user, the recipient of the learning, but what is the line that connects this learning and these eureka moments, if you will, these epiphany moments of, oh my God, that suits me, or this is how I feel empowered because of this learning, back into the organization?
I think that's a difficult one to answer. It completely depends on the individuals themselves, because there is that element of identification of, am I learning, am I developing, have I got this new tool? So sometimes there is elements where people can move through and learn and develop without realizing that they're doing it. But being aware and open to it and trying to look for those parallels, that makes that bond a lot stronger, and a lot more apparent, a lot more visible for the participant as well. So it's kind of a connection base from both the learner, but also from whoever's delivering the learning as well, to make sure that they call those parallels when they see them and have that unique conversation or bespoke training between the two. And that's what it is essentially.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. I mean, I didn't expect anything less from you, to be honest. You touched on something that's very important for me in my life. It's education, really. You're going into, again, what we've long debated, especially since Gen AI, and the perennial sort of discussion: should we allow ChatGPT in their rooms, whatever learning or classroom or school,
It's a
or
tool. Let's
yeah,
not shy away from
absolutely.
technology. They are
That's
tools
it.
to be used, and
Absolutely.
if a tool, it's no different to, for example, spell check for somebody who is dyslexic is going to be potentially no different than using a hammer for a carpenter. It's a craft of their trade. It's to support them in their role in what they do.
Absolutely.
And I think the what people miss about technology is they seem to think that it's cheating, it's a way round it. It's not. It's a tool. It's the way it's used and the way that it's viewed, and it's there. Technology should only enhance and enable what we do, and if we can do that and bring those into the learning, then what's going to be possible is going to be just really exciting in that space, especially with AI as well.
Beautiful. And you know what? The other thing, because we do tend to think in verticals, of course, there's a vertical that's called technology, big flashing scary lights for some. And that's, again, going back to what we were saying earlier about the over 50s and the sort of the inclusion. You're trying to be truly inclusive and give everybody a chance to prove themselves for themselves, and foremost, not to you, but for themselves. Receiving the empowerment of, that is my attainment. I've done it. I've cracked the code, or I've done my first MML, whatever it might be. But it doesn't take away the other vertical, which is the human capital vertical. And in that vertical, there's a connection between, as you said, the person who learns and the person who delivers the learning. The connection, the trust of the teacher and the student. And I say that in a very classical sort of, schooling term, but the same can happen in our organizations. That trust is going to help enable the enhancement, the augmentation that we can receive through any technology or any book, as a matter of fact, because there will be somebody who actually encourages you, who sees some of your strong points, even at the points where we are questioning ourselves and our own abilities. Am I good enough? And we've both had this discussion that there's been times in our lives that we thought, no, we're not good enough, right? It's absolutely incredible opportunity now as an industry to sort of grow. I mean, what do you reckon the connection of neurodivergent people in this space is?
In what respects, sorry, would you mean the connection between neurodiverse?
The connection of the learning, the using of technology. I mean, we spoke about generative
it should
AI.
It should only get better, because as we more sort of explore it and the more we kind of get into it, we should explore it further, and it should enable the neurodiverse community or but anyone. It should all support, and they're all tools to be used, and the connection in those is it allows a bigger variety of support and tools for everybody. There isn't one form or one tool that fits everybody. That's why crutches, if you need crutches to walk, that's why they come with different heights on them. Not one crutch is going to be suitable for everybody, and technology is the same, or any tools within the learning space are going to be the same principles. Just because they've used that tool and they've been able to do this doesn't mean the next person needs to use that tool, because they might be able to do it a different way. If you're all going towards the same outcome and the same results are there, what does it matter on the methods or the tools that we've done to produce the outcome that's required?
Absolutely.
Outside of that, it's more restraining to say that you need to deliver A to B, but you can only do it this one way. That's not
Yes.
going to be suitable potentially for the learners, the deliverer, or even the client at the other end, or the customer, or whoever is, or why we're starting the learning. And then we're kind of boxing ourselves in. And then what we're then doing is creating a retrospective reality of everything needs to be done this way, and it can only be done that way.
Yeah.
I've never come across anything that can only be done one way. I'm yet to find that. And that's what I found with my own learning is somebody said, I learned this and I read this book. It was brilliant. And it's all I ever needed. Now, I can't read books. So I had to find a different way to do it, and we both come out and we're able to do the same things. And, we just learn differently. And it's the same with, it doesn't matter if it's technology tools, is that allowing it and having that awareness, and just being absolutely conscious that you're working towards that common goal and output.
Absolutely. I love this. It's the how. The how is not just one how. The how denotes the different processes and ways and options in life, right? Has got such a social sort of meaning as well. And as an economist, I always sort of spoken about not A or B. It is all about the different range of options that we know of. I mean, okay, there's been problems in on the journey, the problems of the stereotypes, I suppose, or the expectations imposed by the society, the previous generations, how people have basically led their lives, right? And as we grow, and thankfully with the new generations coming now behind us, like following in our footsteps, although I do hope they're not really, strictly speaking, follow our footsteps, but they change and amend and find different hows onto enabling better things. We're coming to realize that we have to change, that we have to consider more hows, more options. And of course, technology is the door opener of another how, yet another how. Ultimately, it's the what it is we're trying to get to. And the what for a company is obviously productivity optimization, process optimization. But the what for us as an employee or as people on this call today is our purpose in life, right? I mean, I know that you have opinions in that sort of purpose in life, the function.
I think there is always that purpose in life to improve, do better, support, and help everyone. For me, there was an ethos of whether it's a person or a thing, you leave it better than it was. Whether that's a conversation or a passing comment, or even just saying, oh, morning, you look nice today. Anything like that is you always just have that impact. And having energy attracts. So what you put out there is what you're getting back. So if you're having that, you want to improve things, you want to make things better, and that's what you're constantly putting out there. Everything around you is only going to get better. That's the only way I can explain it in that terms. It's just that desire to, what you put out there is what you're going to get back. And like I say, if you need to be comfortable in that space with not getting it right as well, be comfortable with it. Like I say, if you're not failing, you're not learning. And if you get something wrong, you've got it wrong, but you've learned so much about what you've done in that space. I think there's the famous inventor that said, I haven't got it wrong, I found 1,000 ways of how not to do it.
Exactly.
But then all the information that's found in that space, and when we say we look at these different tools, and it's that exploration part that is exciting, because you will find something along the way and you're like, this seems like it's working, or it didn't quite work. However, we learn all of this from it, and we can do this with it, we can do that, it can support these people. And it's just always looking at the wider, how can let's do better. And I think that's the purpose of it.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. If only we can not bottle it, but if only, I'm thinking of the airplane with the different sort of, the spray out there. We can spray it out in our workplaces. That would be absolutely amazing. And, there are functions that, whether we like it or not, I suppose we all need them. We need functions that look after the people. They're there for the people. Okay, I do appreciate that purpose and roles can be very much influenced by the themes of the now and what has been happening, and of course There's times that certain roles go more into policing for the benefit of processes and making sure that the etiquette, is being maintained. But nothing will make you make a loss if you start looking after your people, the psychology of the people, what the people are there for, what they hold important. Is it the family? Is it the sport? Is it the music? Is it the things that they do outside of work? Whatever it might be, to try and encourage that and allow those, it goes back to universal design, and you touched on it, the temporary, the permanent, the situational sort of, differences that attest to the same need almost. And you don't have to be neurodivergent. You can be neurotypical, but suffer from something, have a bad day, and wanting to be nonverbal. Boom. That's as simple as that. To really take them to the next level of belonging and of being themselves and of giving you the trust and the engagement.
And sorry, if I'm really honest, it's people. You have to put people first. If you look after the people, whether it's an organization or a football team or whatever, if you look after the people, they will look after the organization or the team. They will do whatever they can. And it's people first. And again, it's the learning space. If you identify with people what they need and it's clear you're supporting them, that person will do everything in their power to make sure they're following the metrics. They're trying to make sure they understand everything. And it's people first. It's people are the power. And I think that's the big mistake, is there's more around people try to go down the route of authority and forcing things and saying, well, this is the bottom line. You just got to suck it up and get on with it, I'm afraid. That's when people go the other way. And if you can rally the people and look after them and put them first, they're going to be in the driving seat. They're going to tell you what's wrong, what needs to be better, and they're going to do the extra to make it go that way because they've been looked after. And it's when you don't do that, that's when the businesses will automatically start failing. And I think that's the big question, is when businesses first go, we're struggling in this area, they look at the data and straight away, right, what can we squeeze, what can we push, rather than let's stop, let's think about the people, what's gone on in the area, what's happened in the past, what are they going through, what's the current struggles. And sometimes just looking at those barriers and functions can straight away strip back and transform the team without already putting a squeeze in or additional KPIs or targets to hit. It's that simple, I think.
Wow. Oh my God, that's such an amazing point. And I have to fess up, I haven't seen that happening frequently enough to make, as we say within our mission, a radical change in the space. For me, meanwhile, having felt a little bit sort of repurposed, I would call it a permanent, irreversible change in the space, because we need to ensure that whatever actions we take are actions that come from a mindset perspective, not because we've read it in a nice article and said, why don't we try that? No, it's a mindset. People first is a mindset. People first is a life attitude. And life happens in the workplace as well. We go there for 8, 9, 10 hours of our day every day. Take away the sleep time. What do you have left? I mean, that's not enough for either yourself or your family or however else you choose to sort of, split your time every day. So to work is critical. To work is an enabler of one's life, one's function in life, as we said earlier, but also of a position about things happening around us.
Absolutely. And I think that sometimes, especially the neurodiverse community will know, is you tend to sacrifice yourself and your energy first before everyone else and everything else. And I think one of the things it's took a long time for me to be brave and actually do, and that's it's be a little bit selfish now and then, is sometimes you have to take a bit of time. The best way I can explain this is, yes, I'm a full-time working in learning and development. However, I'm a dad as well. I'm a husband. I've got friends, so it can be quite difficult to manage in that space. So quite often to say to friends that have kids as well, and it took a long time for me, is sometimes my kids need me to be dad. Sometimes I struggle to be dad, when I've got so much on. And sometimes it's just a case of, hang on, I need 15 minutes just to be me, and then I can be dad. Then I can be dad all day long. Sometimes it's just recognizing that, and giving yourself that break.
Yeah.
Give back to you, so then you can come out and be what you need to be for you. It doesn't matter if you're mum, dad, or a single person in work. Is, you know, you just need to have that bit back for me, bit of TLC, then I can come out as me. Give yourself that break. And I think that's one of the important factors, is to be conscious of.
Wow, so powerful. Time to reflect. Time to reflect. I find that our industry is quite different. Look, I'm not necessarily saying it's different and therefore superior or inferior. That's by the way, superiority, inferiority sort of, you know, dilemmas have never featured in my vocabulary or indeed of my thinking. But and I suppose the new terms are sexy. You know, how can we make this sexy? Well, that's sexy or whatever. It's not about sexy as well, unless we all sort of, you know, agree on a very lame definition that's going to get everybody stick. So our industry is different because somehow, I suppose, it's down to the contribution of towards the GDP that we think, oh, we produce a lot of money or we churn a lot of money. Therefore, we need to be on a high power sort of, you know, horse, or we need to do things quicker, faster, better, and all this. So we chase something. Sometimes we chase a chimera, really, as far as I'm concerned, and we don't stop to reflect. We don't stop to take care of ourselves, to make sure whether we align what we do at work or in the society, in the community, in the family, with our own values. And this is where things can actually go wrong. And this is where the misalignment happens.
Those parallels, they don't meet. That's when it can be difficult. And that's when you need to make that decision, and you need to find, what are your values? What are your purpose? What are you here? What are you doing? And then you can align them from there. And then you go, right, well, that means that to me. This is what that means for them. You know, and that's where you can drive from there and have that clarity of understanding and that almost in-house peacekeeping, if you will, as well, whilst you move forward.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful point too. I think to end this incredibly deep conversation on perhaps one little sort of encouragement from my side towards the audience would be, once you have made this identification and you've raised the awareness for yourself, be unafraid to vocalize it, to articulate it. And you know what? Yeah, shouting from the rooftops is one thing, and it's an option. It's one of the, you know, few hows. But I suppose finding your tribe, finding a community that accepts you as you are, for who you are, for the ways that you want and you feel, exchanging or being you, helping others, rising through lifting others, as I love to say and hopefully do as well, in order to sort of find the space that gives you the freedom to be you and to help others and to make a difference to our space. And we need people like yourself, Luke. We need people like many of the people that I get to meet at Gain, who express exactly the same needs, sometimes challenges, but at the same time, it's all aspirations. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much.